Hi, this is Henry, and welcome to today's tutorial. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be building this simple text search engine that's going to look inside our Postgres database, and it's going to spit it back out to us to our client side. Okay, so before I talk a little bit too much, let me give you guys a quick demo. As you can see here, if I write in Paola, so the first name, it's going to match up with it. And if I want to get a little bit more specific, so I can write in Duran, it is going to limit it to this. Now, of course, there's a lot more data, so let's kind of get out of here. So if I go into hen over here, you're going to see that it matches not only the last name, but also the first name as well. Okay, so now if I want to just get the first name, so I can take Stephanie and I can spit it out right there, you're going to see that Stephanie pops up. And if I try to go for maybe Ancliffe, so I'll take this right here, you can spit it out and it's going to pop up with Ancliffe. And keep in mind that this is going to be basing it a lot on patterns. So if I go for Hendrik, for example, and let's say I don't want to put the full first name, I can just go for maybe like and let's see what pops up. So if I put N inside there, you're going to see quite a few people actually have that, surprisingly. And let's say I want to add an A. Okay, so, well, that's actually surprising. I thought this one had an A as well. Oh, never mind. Yeah, so that's going to be Enda. So as you can see here, it is matching by patterns. Okay, so pretty simple. So I am going to tell you guys that we are going to be using something known as the like keyword in Postgres or in SQL. And if you're a little bit more interested, feel free to read this documentation and learn a little bit more of the full potential of pattern matching and being able to use this like keywords and other things like, for example, similar to, and all these other cool stuff. Okay. Now, I also noticed that I've been doing quite a few SQL tutorials, so I figured that this would be a pretty good time to talk about SQL injection, what and what not to do in order to prevent it, okay? And also there is going to be some prerequisites to this, so you are going to need to have Node.js installed into your computer, and also you're going to need to have Postgres installed on your computer as well. If you haven't, I'm just going to link this video below, and it has a pretty good process in installing it. And besides that, in the next section, what we're going to be doing is we're going to interact with our like keyword and just kind of learn a little bit more about it. So I'll see you guys in the next section. Okay, so let's just get a better idea of how the like operator works. Now, of course, this part is totally optional. So if you already have an idea of how the like operator works and you just want to jump into building the application, then just feel free to go to the timestamps and just skip ahead. Now, I'm going to go to w3schools.com/SQL, and once I reach there, I'm going to go to the bottom called SQL-like, so click on that, and then we're going to immediately jump to the bottom to just interact with the data. So let's click that. All right, so now that this is jumping up, okay, so the idea with the like operator is that it's about being able to match certain things based on a pattern that you define. Right, so this right here is a pattern. So it's basically saying that find anything that's kind of like this pattern over there. Now I'm going to put this down over here. Now, in order for like to be even more effective at finding a certain patterns, we have these things called wildcards characters. And the main ones you're going to see is percentage, and the other one is going to be underscore. And I can even show you right here that if I go to SQL wildcards, you're going to see that there's a lot more. So you see that we're using the percentage, we're using the underscore, and there's these other guys over there. Now, if I go back inside here, the idea with the percentage is that it's going to match any sequence of that character. So you're going to see right here that we have a percentage. So can you guess what this is going to do? So if I run the SQL, you're going to start to see that all the A's pop up over there. And now if I want to be able to put an N, so if I put an N over there, guess what's going to happen? If I click Run SQL, it's only going to pop up any of the stuff that starts with an A and an N. And of course, if I decide to go for, let's say, Antonio, you're going to see that Antonio is the only one that pops up because it's the only one that starts with ant, okay? So hopefully that makes more sense, right? So it's going to be matching any sequence of characters, but this is not limited to just doing it this way. So if I go inside here, let's say I want to access Moreno. So if I go inside and I say Moreno, I say run SQL, what's this? It says no results. And the reason for that is because there's no name that starts with Moreno. So in order for me to, so let me just kind of go back to show you guys again. In order for me to access Moreno, I need to be able to put 2% from to the left and to the right. And this is going to allow us to find in any position where this pattern is going to be matched. So if I go inside here and I write Mockaroo now, and I say run SQL, Mockaroo is going to pop up. And let's try something else as well. If I go inside to A, and I decide to go to, well, I don't even know what this is, but yeah, let's go for around the horn. If I decide to get like maybe OUN, and I put this right there, and I put the percentage, it is going to match the pattern of around the horn. Oh, and there's another one as well. Okay, so pretty neat. And of course, if you want to be able to match the end, you're going to need to get rid of the end percentage. And so in this case, if I run SQL, it's going to return me nothing. But remember, the last one is around the horn. So if I write a horn inside here, and I run SQL, you're going to see that horn pops up right there. Right? Okay, so again, the percentage is about matching any sequence of characters, 0 or more characters. Okay, now we have this underscore. An underscore is a little bit tricky. The idea with it is that each of these underscores represents a character. So if I look into around the horn again, I think that's actually quite a nice one. So I'll just do this one more time. Oh, I have it right here. Never mind. Okay, so when we look at around the horn, it is represented as a string. So if I look inside here, it's going to say around the horn, right? This is one whole string. But in each of these strings, or in each part of these strings, you're going to see that A is in the first position, R is in the second position, third is going to be O, and you can see it just kind of keeps going on with different positions. Now, if I want to be able to recognize around the world, or sorry, around the horn, I need to make sure that I get the positions correct. So another way of writing this is that I can say, this is going to look a little strange, but I can put A inside there, and for the rest, so let's count this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 14, so we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And now if I take the state over here and I put it inside here, you're going to be able to see that this thing continues to show up. Oops, probably because I added another one. Oh, because I have these things over here. Yeah, so you see around the horn matches up because the reason is that A is in its rightful position. And if I decide to put N inside here, it's still going to work because N is in its rightful position. And if I decide to put R and O, and let's count this, UND space T, oh, I already lost my space. But anyway, if I put all of these things down already and I click run SQL, it's still going to pop up because they're in their rightful positions, okay? So just remember that. And of course, you don't always have to limit yourself to just using underscores or percentage. You can also combine these things together. So let's say, for example, that I want to be able to, let's just kind of get everything right here. So let's say, for example, I want to be able to get anything that just as long has a L in its second position. So I can simply say underscore L, and then I can use the percentage sign. So it's going to find any patterns that has L as the second position. So if I run SQL, look at that. L's in the second position, L's in the second position, and likewise for the rest of them. All right. Let's see. I feel like I might be forgetting something. Besides that, oh no, there's actually a lot more. So also you can actually use something known as not. So you can actually get everything else that does not equal to this pattern. So if I run the SQL, it's going to return anything but these things. So it's going to return all these other ones, and then if I just say back to like, you're going to see it's going to return back to the pattern that I specified over there. All right. And I think besides that, that's pretty much the big idea that you need to understand between the like operator. And if anything pops up in my mind, we're just going to start building this application and we're just going to learn together. Okay. So I'll see you guys in the next section and we're going to start building this application. All right, so it's time for us to start building our application. So the first thing you're going to do is create a folder called PG Search Text Tutorial, okay? And you can name this whatever you want, but it is going to contain our server and our client folder. Now, I do want to say that I'm going to go through the RESTful API really quickly, mainly because I go through this process a lot. If you're actually new to the Pern Stack, I highly recommend you watch my to-do list Pern Stack tutorial, specifically in Free Code Camp because Bu was able to edit it a lot better than me. So check that out, okay? So anyway, let's get this started. So the first thing I'm going to do is mkdir server, and I am going to cd into that server, and I am going to run npm init-y. And this is going to keep track of a kind of like a recipe list of all the packages I used. and then I'm going to say npm install express cores, and then finally pg. All right, I'll just open this up. So the idea of express is that it's going to create servers on Node.js for us. Then we have cores, which is going to allow like different domain applications to interact with each other. And then we have PG, which is going to allow us to interact with our Postgres database by using queries in our routes. All right. So while this is loading, I'm just going to create a new file, a new file of index.js. And then inside here, I'm just going to take in the libraries. So that's perfect timing. Finish loading. So require express. And then we're going to say const course is going to require course. And then we're finally going to need to take that express library. So we're going to say const app is going to equal to express. And we're going to run it. So now we can use the full power of express within this app variable. So I can say app.listen 5000, and I'm just going to run all these things inside. So a callback function of console.log server is starting on, man, I can't spell today, starting on port 5000. And then I'm going to start creating some middleware. So I'm going to say app.use course. So I'm going to initialize it. And then I'm going to immediately run express.json. Okay, and this is going to give us access to request.body. Okay. Now, I'm just going to divide this by saying routes. Okay, so I think we're pretty much done with the starting of the server, but let's just make sure we didn't mess anything up. So I'm going to run nodemon index. Now the thing is that you could totally use node index, but the reason I'm using nodemon is because it's going to watch my file for any changes so I don't have to keep restarting. So it seems like everything is good. So the next step is to create a file called database.sql. Now again, this is just going to make it a lot more visually pleasing, and it's a way for us to kind of see our data a little bit better. So what we're going to do is we're going to generate our data for ourselves. Because remember, when we're making this little simple text search engine, we're going to have like a massive amount of data. So we want to be able to generate maybe like about 500 so we can just play around with it. So I already have the website set up. It's called Mockaroo. So if you want to be where I'm at, just go to mockaroo.com. Now, of course, if you don't want to generate your own data, you can just use my own data so we can be on the same page. So I'll link that below the video right here. Okay, so anyway, if you want to join me, which is good practice, you're totally free to do that. So anyway, I'm just going to get rid of the IP address and the gender and the email. And I just totally forgot, I didn't even tell you guys what Mockaroo is about. It's about being able to generate realistic data for ourselves. So in this case, we're going to name the column as first name and last name, and it's going to be a type of these things over there. And we're going to call this user ID. We don't have to worry too much about the primary key because all we're really going to focus on is being able to get these type of data. Okay. Now we are needing to go to the format, define it as SQL, and it's going to tell us what do you want to name your table. So in this case, we're going to name it as users. Okay, so it's going to contain all of our users. And what else? You're also going to see something that says include. So let me just make this bigger. You're going to see something that says include create table. So currently, when you're previewing the data and you go into SQL, you're going to see that we have all these nice insert into commands, which is good, but we want to be able to first create that table. So it's going to say include create table. So now we previewed that and we look inside the SQL, you're going to see that in fact we have created a table and we have all the data over there. So we're going to, well, let me reduce this heavily. I don't really want to work with 1000. So now that we have this down, I am going to now download the data. All right, so this thing is going to download, and now if I bring this to the side, I can just simply drag this over here and just snugly fit inside there. All right, so now we have this create table, and now the last thing we need to do is that we need to be able to create a little database for ourselves. So I'm just going to call this PartyDB. So I'm going to say create database. Well, actually, let me see if it exists already. So let me actually open my database inside here. So I'm going to run PSQL-u Postgres. Because I think I remember I made an application like this. So let me just check that really quick. Oh, I just realized I put it in the wrong area. Okay, so we actually need to put it inside there. So actually I was dragging the file of this inside here, but actually I want to put the data in there. Honestly, it really doesn't matter. We're just going to be eventually putting all the data inside the database anyway. So anyway, I'm going to check whether or not that database does exist. So it does exist, so I'm going to drop that. So I'm going to say drop database. So you don't have to do this. This is just me cleaning things up. Now that's dropped, now I can utilize that again. I'm going to call it party DB. Okay, so now that I have this all set up, I'm just going to grab all of this and I'm going to spit it inside of my database. Now, of course, there's more efficient ways of doing so, but I just wanted to let you guys do it this way because it's the easiest way, in my opinion. Now we're going to /c. Well, now we can't /c inside there yet. We need to first create that database. So I'm going to create that database first. Alright, so now it says create database, and we're just going to clear this up. And now I'm going to take all of these data. Wait, sorry. I have to /c into that database first. So let's go inside that database, and now we can start doing this. So we're going to create an insert generated data for ourselves. So I'm going to take all of this, and I'm just going to spit it out inside here. Alright, so it seems like everything is successful. So once this thing finished downloading, I'll just meet up with you guys again. Alrighty, so my data has been completely inserted into my database, and a neat trick you can do just to kind of count to see whether or not you really truly added 500 is that you can do select star, and then you can specify, oh sorry, not select star, you have to do select count. So we're going to be counting this instead of actually printing every single thing out. And then we're going to say from, and that's going to be the result from users. So what this command is going to do, and you can see 500 pops up, is that it's going to count the amount of things inside my user table. All right, so that's just a neat trick in your tool belt. And then we're just going to do CLS to clear it all out. All right, now let's see what's next. Well, we are going to need to connect our database with our server, so I'm going to create a new file called db.js. And remember how we took in that PG library, so we're going to say const pool, require pool, or PG, and then dot pool. Okay, so now this is going to allow us to configure how and where we're going to connect to our database. So we're going to say require, oh sorry, not require, new pool. And then we are going to start configuring it. So the first thing we're going to need is the user, which is going to be Postgres. Next, we're going to have the password, which is going to come from KTHL8822. Of course, that's always the password that you defined. Then there's going to be the port, which is going to be localhost. No, sorry, not localhost. It's going to be 5432. And then we're going to have the host, which is going to be localhost. And then finally, we have to define the database, which is going to be party DB. All right, and that's coming from the DB that we defined right there. Okay, and next we have to export this thing because this is what we're going to utilize in order to run some routes within our queries. Or sorry, run queries within our routes. I'm just mixing up things today. Okay, so as you can see here, we exported it out, and now we can go inside our index.js and take that. So I can simply say const pool, and I'm going to require that / and db. So now we have this for our disposal, and we can now start building some routes. So in the next section, we are going to start to apply that like operator. So I'll see you then. Okay, so it's time for us to start building this route. So we're just going to be working on one route. Now, I just gotta give you guys a little heads up is that we don't need this express.json because it turns out we're not going to be adding data. So I totally forgot about that. So you can get rid of that now. Okay, so we're going to be making a single GET request. So the thing is that we are going to pass some data, but we're passing data in order to make it a lot more easier to filter what exactly we want. So the perfect case for that is utilizing something known as query parameters. Now, if you don't know what query parameters is, I'll just show you guys this really quick. Query parameters. So query parameters is this idea about being able to send data within the URL. So for example, if you look inside here, http://localhost 5000, and then we're going to send this data over here. So in this case, I'm going to define it as name, which is going to equal to, for example, Henry. And by doing so, it's going to pass this data to me to the server side, and it can utilize that data by accessing the request.query and then putting that within my database to find the pattern. Now, the thing is that when you look at request.body or you look at request.params, it's the same exact process like this. Okay, so that's how you're going to access the data. Now, it's often confused with params. Now, params is quite different. It looks like this. So we have this colon over there and we have this little ID. And the idea with it is that it's used to identify a specific resource, okay? And we usually use the request.params in order to access that data over there, right? We use this as a variable in place of the value. So anytime you're designing your RESTful API, usually a convention that people like to do is that, again, they like to use params as a way to identify specific resources, and then people use query parameters as a way to sort, filter different types of resources. Now, the reason we're using query parameters is because that's exactly what we're doing. We're sorting, filtering different data for the first name and last name that's given to us. So, before I confuse you guys even more, I'm just going to say app.get, and I'm going to hit the /user route, okay? Because hopefully, or maybe we might get more than one user. And I'm going to say async request.res, and async essentially is going to provide us these cool tools to do asynchronous requests. So console.error, error.message, and we are going to get access to this thing called await, which I'll explain to you guys what it is later. So before I do that, I'm going to say res.json, and I'm going to give you guys what request.query looks like. All right, so request.query, again, is just going to be a simple object, and I already tested it out a little bit, so you're going to see what it's going to look like. So I'm going to move this on the side, and I'm going to open my Postman over there. You can see we already got some data, but let's kind of get rid of all of this first. So this is from the demo. So I'm just going to make a new tab, and I'm going to say http //localhost 5000, and we're going to hit /users, and we're going to specify name is going to equal to Henry. So if I click enter, you're going to see that I get this regular object with the key of name and the value as Henry. Okay, so this is awesome. So this is data that we can actually access from the client side. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing. So inside here, I'm going to do some destructuring. I'm going to say const name is coming from request.query. Okay, so now that we have this, we are going to start making the query that's going to function all of this. So I'm going to say const, and I'm going to say users await, because it's going to take some time, right? It takes time to look through a database and to find things. So I'm going to use await, and I'm going to say await pool.query. And I'm going to run the regular convention of select all from users. Okay, so this looks very familiar to you guys, right? But whenever we want to get something more specific, we are going to utilize something called where. And now this is where things get very interesting. So inside, we are going to need to specify like what type of columns we're trying to look for inside. So in this case, we are going to need to concat the first name and the last name. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this little first name. So now we have a first name column, and we also have this class name column. Sorry, this last name column. So what we want to do is that we want to be able to combine these together with a little space, so it could be so much more easier for us to utilize this double parentheses to find the specific data that we're trying to get. So let me demonstrate this with maybe my name. So I want to put Henry as the first name, and I want to add a space, and then I want to add ly. So by doing so, when I run this type of query, so if I say, for example, like say ENRY, and I add a space, it's still going to continue to get this type of data. Okay, and if I try to just simply do ly, it's going to continue to go for this data right there. All right, so we're going to do that really quick. And just one more thing, and this is going to look a little confusing, but anytime you look at the side, it may seem like a or statement, which isn't wrong, but anytime you're working with SQL, this stuff right here represents, in a way, a concat way. So it's a way to concat things together. So in SQL, this thing is used to concat. So just remember that, and you're about to see what this is going to look like. So I'm going to say first name, and I'm going to concat this with a space. And don't forget to make that single quotes. I'm going to add a space inside there. and I'm going to also concatenate the last name. So now I'm creating this nice looking string with a space in the middle with the first name and the last name. All right, so we have this long, nice looking string. So time for us to utilize this like operator. So we're going to put like inside there, and you're going to soon realize why we're not going to use like. We're going to soon use something called iLike, but I'll explain that later. So we're going to be using something called like, and now it's time for us to define a pattern. So I'm going to use $1. And inside this little array as my second argument is going to define what this $1 is going to look like. Okay, so I'm going to define the patterns now. I am going to add a template string with 2%, and inside exactly in the middle is going to contain my name. Where is this name coming from? From the client side. So whatever the client is searching on the client side, I'm going to put inside there to search it within the string right there. Oh man, that was a handful of it. Okay, so let's see what's going to happen. So if I res.json users.rows, we're going to soon see, hopefully this does end up working for us. Okay, so I am now going to bring this to the side, and you can see that we have this little sample over here. So I am going to change this to HE, because I don't think they actually have a Henry inside. So if I click enter, you're going to see indeed that we actually have people that pop up, which is strange. I thought there was actually more than one HE. So let's actually try to add a little bit more. Let's try to add a, let's put a common name. Let's add BB. I'm pretty sure someone has two B's inside their names. Strangely enough, this is only getting one data at a time. I actually don't know why it's doing that. Okay, wait. Hen? Okay, what happens if I add an A inside here? Yeah, we're only getting one user at a time. That's very fascinating. That means I probably had a bug inside here, so let's just kind of check this out. Oh, oh, sorry, you guys. I accidentally got the first item. That's not supposed to be right. Okay, I got scared for a bit. I was like, oh no. Okay, now we're going to HE, and then we click enter. You're going to see that we get more than that data, right? So we're getting data right now. And now we try to go for Amara. You're going to see we get Tamara that pops up over there, and another Tamara over there. But here's where things get a little bit interesting. If I decide to add a lowercase t and I click enter, I am not going to get data back. And the reason for this is because when you're utilizing Postgres, unlike MySQL, it treats the string as case sensitive. So this like is going to treat it as case sensitive. So it's important for us to utilize something called iLike, which is from Postgres, and it's going to allow us to make our stuff case insensitive, so it allows us to get data more easily. Okay, so now if I do Control S and I go back inside here and I add a capitalized T, things should continue to work properly. Oh, actually, no, I'll keep it lowercase t, just to prove my point. Now if I click enter, you're going to see that we get the data back. So pretty neat. And if we decide to define some patterns, so we have Tamara over there, and I decide to add a space. So adding a space is %20, and I go inside here and I add like H or Y, H-U-Y, I can't spell. You're going to see that we pop up this user. Okay, so pretty neat. So we have this nice little filter over here. So I think that is pretty much all we're going to do within this route. Now, again, if you're still confused, don't worry about it, because at the end of this whole entire tutorial, we're going to just have a little quick review. So in the next section, we're going to start implementing this in the client side. So I'll see you guys then. Okay, so let's start building the client side. As you can see here, I already have a client folder that I got from npx create react app, so it's going to hold my React application. So just to get started, I'm going to cd into it, and I'm immediately going to say npm start while we fix this thing. Now the thing is that I'm not going to do all the cleanup like I usually do, because we're just going to be working inside the app.js. Okay, well, first of all, let's go into Bootstrap 4, so I already have it set up here. And we're going to take in the styling to just make the process faster. I'm going to go into my index.html, and I'm just going to just paste it probably around here, okay? So inside your little head tag. And once you're doing this, you're going to go inside the app.js, and we're just going to clean some things up, okay? So I'm going to get rid of the logo because I don't really need that. I'm also going to put inside a fragment because that's going to make sure we contain everything correctly. And I'm also going to need to use a use state eventually. All right. And I'm just going to clean all this out and just put my fragment inside. All right. So pretty easy. So we seem we're pretty good. Besides that, I think everything is pretty much set up carefully, and we're just going to be waiting for this thing to turn on. So I'll get back to you guys really soon. Okay, so our stuff finished loading, so we can start doing some stuff. So immediately right off the bat, I'm just going to have a simple H1 that's going to say, like, let's call this party list, because this is going to contain a bunch of people inside our party. And then let's just kind of check this out really quick. Okay, so it looks not too bad. We know Bootstrap's inside there. So I'm going to add a container as well, because it seems to be too close into the edge. And I'm going to put the H1 side. And I'm also going to give this a class name. You know what? Since I want everything to be centered, I'm just going to put it up here. So I'm going to say text centered. And I'm also going to add a class name inside here, which is going to be a margin y of 5. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Hopefully a little bit better. So this thing's still a little bit compiling. So while this thing's compiling, I might as well just kind of go inside here and to add my little form. Okay, so we're going to need to have a form because we're going to insert that data. Okay, so right under here, I'm going to have a simple form. I'm going to get rid of this action because we don't need that. And I'm just going to have a simple input. Ooh, what's that? A simple input. It's going to have a type of text. It's also going to have a name of, let's call it a name. And then we're also going to have a placeholder, which is going to say enter party user, I guess. You know what, we can just simply say enter user, ... And then we're just going to add a class name of this. So you can see it's right there, and it looks really ugly. So we're just going to have a form control, all right? And then finally, we're going to need to have a button inside here. So I'm going to add a button with a submit, and it's going to have a class name of btn success. Okay, so let's see how that's going to look. And you're going to see that this thing gets immediately kicked out, so we don't want that. So we're going to do a deflex. So I'm going to put a class name inside here. Now you may start to notice that this looks very familiar to the to-do list. So it's going to have even the same structure as the table down here. Okay, so anyway, deflex. And we're going to be putting these things together. All right, so now it's time for us to reactify this, because right now, sure, we can add data, but we are not connected to React state yet. So we're going to go up here and start utilizing that use state. So I'm going to say const, and we're going to say name, and then we're going to have set name. Right, so this is the data we're getting from the input, and I'm going to have a use state of a default value of an empty string. All right, and now I can simply just go inside my input immediately, put my value inside there, and put inside name, and then we're going to need to do an on change because we're going to change this value, right? Because right now I have name inside here, but I can't change any value. So if I save that really quick, you're going to soon see that I can't put anything inside there until I get an unchange. So I'm going to have an unchange. It's going to say E, and we're going to be taking that set name over there, and we're going to target E target.value. All right, so now that this is all set up, we should be able to add some values inside there, which we can, and now it's going to fill up our state. All right, so far so good. And the next thing we're going to do is that we need to be able to send this to our RESTful API. Okay, so we're going to go inside here, and we're just going to make a function called const onSubmitForm. This is going to submit a form, which is going to take an event. And of course, we are going to make this async because it's going to take some time to get some data from our RESTful API. So try catch, and we're going to have error, so console.error, error.message. And then we are going to put this on top prevent default because we don't want this thing to refresh. And inside here is where we start to do the real stuff. So we're going to make a fetch request. So I'm going to say const users. So this is where we're going to start utilizing that concept of query parameters. So I'm going to wait because it's going to take some time to make a fetch request. Now I'm going to aim for that REST API. So http://localhost 5000. And then I'm going to hit users, and now I'm going to use that question mark, and this is where I'm going to start defining some data. Now I'm sure that we can add data inside there. I'm going to make this a template string, all right? And as usual, we're going to set this as name, and we're going to equal that into that value that we have as our state. So I'm going to put name inside there. All right, so it's going to be setting that name data that we have in the input when submitted, and then we're just going to simply parse the data, because remember, once we get the data back, it's going to be JSON data, so we need to parse it. We're going to say const, parse users, and I don't really want to call this users the more I think about it, because it's just going to be response, and I eventually want to use users up there. So I'm just going to call this parse response, and then that's going to be set equal to await. So it's going to take some time to do response.json. All right, and then we could simply just say res, or not res. We're going to say console.log parse response, and we're going to see whether or not we actually get data. Okay, and of course, don't forget to connect to the form, because I keep forgetting to do that. So we're going to connect it to onSubmit form. All right, so let's see that whether or not this thing does work. So everything seems to be green. We don't see any breaking down happening. So I'm going to go to my console, and I'm just going to clear things away. And now we're going to start making a request and see whether or not we get data. Okay, oops. Let's get rid of this and go back to console, clear this thing up, and I am going to say HEN. So I'm pretty sure there's something that's going to start with HEN. So if I click submit, whoa, look at that, we get data back. Awesome. And you can see that we got the HEN from here, we got the HEN from this one. So we're just getting data back with this type of pattern over there. Okay, let's just test this one more time. So what happens if I say, let's say Nadia. So Nadia is the only one that pops up over there. So cool, so everything's working correctly. So now all we have to do is just set this as the state. So I'm going to say const users. So we're going to put this inside an array. So we're going to say set users, and we're going to say equals to useState, and it's going to be an empty array, because look, this is an empty array right there. So now I'm just going to go to the bottom, and instead of console.logging it, I'm just going to simply say set users, and we're going to make that equal to the parse response. All right. And the next thing we're going to do is that we want to spit the user state, since it's all having that array. So I'm just going to simply go down here, and I'm going to make this as a table. So I'm going to put the table under here, and inside this table it's going to have a t-head, and inside a t-head we're going to have a tr tag that's going to contain the t-headers. All right, so the first one is going to say first name, and the next one we're going to have is going to say last name. So now, if we look into it, let's see, hopefully it does work out well for us. Oops. And also we're going to add a class name to this as well. So we're going to use Bootstrap again. So we're going to have a class name of table. And also, you know, why not? Let's just add a margin Y of 5 as well. Okay, so we have this nice looking table over here. And now we just need to establish this data and put it inside the T data. So inside here, I'm going to have a T body, and we're going to have a simple TR. So now, before I even do any of those things, I want to spit it out now. So I'm going to use some JavaScript logic, and I'm going to spit out users, and we're going to say .map. So we're going to map through all of the users, so each one of them, and we're going to put them inside this little TRTD tags. So TR, and inside here, we're going to put them inside this TD tag as in data. So this is going to correlate with the first TH, and the second one is going to correlate with not TR. It's going to correlate with the second one. All right, so I'm going to put inside here some data. So I'm going to say user.first name, because remember, well, I don't have it anymore, but essentially inside the object, it's going to have first name inside there. And then for the second one, as you guessed it, it's going to have user.last name. Alrighty, so let's see whether or not this does work out for us. So I'm going to put this down to see whether or not it does work. So I'm going to use the same hen over there. And if I click submit, hey, look at that, we get our data back. So we got Nadia, Othens, and it's placed a little bit cleaner. And if I decided to be more specific, like key, you're going to see we get all these other people. And just to double check for fun, we're going to say Suki, and we get this person right there. So awesome. And of course, you're going to see that each child in the list should have a unique key prop. So we can just fix that really quick. So we're going to add a key prop over there. And to ensure that's unique, remember we have that little user.id. I think that's what I called it. User ID. All right, so the error should disappear. Let's make sure it does. So cool. Yeah, everything seems to be rightly correct. And I think the next thing we can do, just for minor details, if you're really wanting to continue, because this is pretty much it, we can actually do a little search where if I write in something that doesn't exist, it's going to say no results found. So we could definitely use a ternary operator for just displaying the data if we see nothing, but I'm just going to simply just put it under here instead. Because I tried to do it last time in the last demo, and it just kind of hurt the styling a little bit. So I'm just going to just do the no result found under here. So if it turns out that we have no results, so if it turns out that users.length does end up equaling to 0, and we're going to then display that data. So we're going to simply say no results found. So this logic right here is going to make this true, and then it's going to set this true, and therefore displaying the data. So no results found, and then if I add HEN again, you're going to see we get the data back. So awesome, congratulations! You basically build a print stack, little small text search engine. And in the next section, what we're going to do is just have a little quick review, and I'm going to introduce you guys to the idea of SQL injection. So I'll see you then. All right, so let's just do a little quick review of what we just did in this application. I mainly wanted to focus on this port and in this little part over this route over there, okay? So the thing is that what we did was that we sent an HTTP request with a query parameter. So we send some values within our URL, and we send the data of name. Okay, so once we got that data, it was sent inside the server. The server destructured it by accessing it by request.query and took in that name data. So that's the name that's coming from the client side. Now, as you can see here, we had this little user over here. And by taking this users, we essentially insert the data inside there. Now, this query is going to look a little bit complicated, but the basic idea with this is that we are going to select everything from users, and we also want to be specific. So we're going to be using a where clause. Now, this part right here is often what confuses a lot of people, including myself, because back then I thought these two lines represented OR, which isn't wrong, but when it comes to SQL, these things represent concatenation. So essentially what I'm doing here is that I'm taking the combination of the first name along with the space and the last name, putting them together and making it a lot more easier for me to access the data or finding patterns by using this 2% sign over there. All right, so now that I have this concatenation, then I'm going to be using something called ILike. So you can see we used to use like, but the problem with that was that it was case sensitive. By using ILike, we make it case insensitive, so it doesn't matter whether or not we capitalize or we decapitalize. And then finally here we had this $1, which we actually placed it in this data right here. So we defined the pattern, and all we simply did was put 2% and put the name from the client side. Okay. Now, if you remember correctly, the thing about the percentage is that it's going to look through every position, and it's going to spit out as long as it matches this pattern over there that's being defined. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And of course, if you're still confused, check out W3 Schools or just read the documentation, and it'll give you pretty good examples of how to work through this. All right, so besides that, yeah, that's pretty much all we worked on the big stuff on the application. So I figured now it's a good time to really talk about what is SQL injection. Now, SQL injection is this idea, or it's this technique about injecting malicious code to your database. So let me give you an example of what this is. It's much better if I just show you guys of what the problem with SQL injection does, and I can just show you guys what this real life application that we just built. So I have this thing, which is considered to be really bad. It's still going to continue the same way, but what we're essentially doing is just using regular template strings. And we don't have that $1, and we don't have that brackets over there. All we're simply doing is running this simple command, the same process, and then we're just using template strings in order to get that client-side data inside here. So now, if I go inside here, and let's say we actually just do HE and we submit data, so we got a few more users over there, so it seems to be everything's working fine correctly. Okay, so let me just kind of get rid of this so I can show you guys a little bit more better. So let me just X this out really quick. So I'm going to go back inside here, and you're going to see that everything works perfectly fine. But now we can start utilizing something more malicious. So for example, I could start dropping this table. Now I'm a little nervous of doing that, so I'm just going to open my SQL over here. And you know we have this party DB, so if I go to /dt, you can see we only have one table. So I'm going to create another table, and I'm just going to call it random, because this is what we're going to be using to delete the data. Okay, so I created a table, and if I do /dt, you're going to see that I have a randoms table. So now I could just simply put in Baron. So I can put in Baron over there, and then check this out. I can simply do a little quote over there. Then I'm going to add a semicolon, and inside there I'm going to just run a simple command of drop table, and I'm going to say random, and then I'm going to add another semicolon over there, and then I'm going to do comments. So let's see what happens. If I submit the data, so nothing seems to be happening, but if you look inside here, you're going to see that our random table was just deleted. So what on earth is this command over there? Why does it look so weird? And I think you might actually recognize it, that this is a regular command that we use in order to drop tables. And it happened over this side. So that's very interesting. Basically, what we just did just now is something known as SQL injection. So let me show you guys a little bit closer up of what we just did. And I don't want to delete the user table. We can actually do that by simply running this command over there. But like I said again, just in case you do want to work with this application still, let's not do that. Okay, so let's just keep it as random. And I'll just write the command right there. So essentially what we did is that, and I think it makes more sense if we do it inside the database.sql. So I'm just going to put it on this side and just bring it a little closer so we can see. So the command that I wrote inside there was Baron. So what I was doing is that I was looking at all of the data. So I can take all of this data over here and just kind of paste it over here. All right. So what essentially I was doing is that I was selecting everything from users where the first name or concatenated all together. And just to kind of keep it simplified, I'm just going to add Baron inside. So I'm going to say we're going to find Baron. That was the pattern that we were looking for. But the thing is that what I did after that is that I added another semicolon inside there. So I added another quote inside there. And then I simply said drop table. And then I said random. And then I comment all these things out, but also I added a semicolon and I comment these things out. So the reason why I wasn't getting any data back was because this little percentage sign over there wasn't going to give me back data, right? Because I got rid of it. But ultimately, I was able to drop the table of random. So I can try this out one more time. So I can actually, just to kind of show you another table, let's create a table called SQL injection. And we're going to delete that. Actually, I don't even know why I did it this long. So I'm just going to copy that. And I'm going to put it right there. So now, as I do this, I'm going to do /dt. So /dt, and now if I click submit again, you're going to see that our database was just deleted, right? So this kind of shows you that you can do a lot of malicious things if you actually don't protect yourself carefully from SQL injection. So how do we protect ourselves? So I'm just going to show you one way, and we've been doing this for a lot already. So the thing is that that's why we want to utilize this thing over here. The big idea is that it's essentially going to help us filter the data that's actually going to be entered within our database. So it's going to assure that commands are not going to be written. So just keep in mind that don't use template strings because it's literally going to write the command inside there, and instead use the library's actual ways of using $1 and just being able to use this bracket in order to filter the data. All right, so hopefully that makes a lot more sense. And again, congratulations, and I wish you guys best of luck. So see you then.